Hi, in this video we are going to build a simple chat application using Django, channels and Redis. When you come to the front page of the chat application, you need to fill in a username and a room name. You can join whatever room you want. All the rooms are open and the messages are stored in the database, so you might find someone else using it. I don't have much experience with WebSockets and channels, so I have to apologize if something is unclear. Feel free to leave a comment and ask me questions. Anyways, let's get started building this awesome little chat application. So we can first begin by setting up the environment we are working in. As always, I'm going to use a virtual environment. And to create the environment as a virtual env, and then the name, which is chatty, which is the name of this project, env. And then I can go into it, activate it by saying source bin activate, and as you can see here, now it's activated. So that means I can install Django into this environment. And I install Django by saying pip install Django, hit enter. This will install the latest version of Django and also a few dependencies that Django has. And when that's done, we can install channels, and that is done the same way by saying pip install channels. And what is actually channels? I can just quote the creators of it. Channels wraps Django's native asynchronous view support, allowing Django projects to handle not only HTTP, but protocols that require long-running connections too, like chat and live gaming and similar. And next you can install channels Redis. This is a connection between Redis and channels. To do that, we say pip install channels _ Redis. Redis is used as a backing store for channels, like an in-memory cache. And the last thing we need then is a Redis server. I'm going to use Docker to make things as simple as possible. If you don't have Docker installed on your computer, you need to install it before you can continue. And when you have Docker running, you can run this command to start the Redis server. It's very simple. You just say docker run -p 6379:6379 -d redis :5 and hit enter. Okay, I don't have permissions. Let me try with sudo. Okay, I'm not running Docker. So I need to start the Docker application here on my Mac. Great, so now I have it running and I can try to run the command again. Okay, I can't find it locally, so this will download Redis to the computer and create a container where Redis will run in my Docker. Okay, so now if I go back here, I guess I will see that I have an image running for Redis. Perfect. So now all of the software is installed and we can create a Django project. So I can go back to the command line here and say Django-admin start project chatty. Now I can go into it, so we are in the root of the Django project. I want to have one Django app for storing messages, serving the templates, etc. And I want this app to be called chat. To start it, I say python manage.py start app chat. And before I forget it, I need to go into the root, find the settings file and add chat to the list of installed apps. Chat. And whoops. And since I'm already here, I can also append channels, which we installed. Channels, like that. And since we are already in this file, we can also configure the ASGI application, which we will use later in this tutorial. ASGI application, oops, equals chatty.asgi.application. This will be used for serving the templates, while this will be used for serving the sockets. Then I also need to set up the channel layers for Redis and the connection to channels. And to do that, I just say channel _ layers equals, add a curly bracket, and the default name, like that. Then I need to set the backend and that is channels Redis, which we installed, .core Redis channel layer, capital L, like that. Config, I need to set the address to it. Oops. Hosts, and then a list. Here I want to add, oops, like that, a tuple inside this list. And here's a 127.0.0.1, and I combine this with the port, which is 6379, and 6379 is the port we used when we started the Docker container. So then just need to append the comma there, and everything here is okay now. Great, so now I can go back to the to-do list, and I can set this task to done. Next step now is to create a front page. So inside this chat application, I create a new file on folder called templates, and inside there one more folder called chat, and in there I create one more file called index.html. Make this a little bit smaller so it's easier to see the code. So first I begin with the doc type, and then HTML head, set the meta charset, the title of the application, and then also use a CDN to include Bulma, which is a CSS framework I'm going to use for the design. You can also use Bootstrap if you want, but then some parts will be different with your. And then I add a body, a section close section, so we get a little bit space above and below all the content. And inside there a container, so I can have things in the middle of the screen. And then I want to add one more div for the columns, just so that I can separate code a little bit and make things as tidy and as clean as possible. And in here I want to show a hero where we have the title and the subtitle with information. So this is a div class column which fills out the half of the screen, and an offset 3, so it's on the middle of the screen. I also have an MB6 which gives a little bit space below this div. Inside here I create a hero, I set is primary, which will be the background color, and then the title and the subtitle. And then below this column, paste a little bit more code. A column is 4 and offset with 4. In there I have a field for filling out the room name. First add a label and then a div class control. And then I set input class input, type text, placeholder is room name, and I give this an ID so I can access it from JavaScript later. And I have a field for username with these details. And below these two fields I have a simple button, which I also have an ID so I can get it from JavaScript. And then below this section I just want to add the empty script tag, so it's done, script, and save. So then we can create the view to render this HTML file. So inside this views file, create new by saying def index request return render, pass in the request again, and then chat/index.html. Then we can save that. And then to access this, I want a separate URLs file inside this chat application, urls.py. And from Django.urls import path, so we can set up the paths. From .import views, so I import the whole views file. URL patterns, oops, like that. This is a list, and then just a path. This can be empty. Views.index is the view we want to render, and I set the name to index. And save. And then the last thing before we can test this is to go to the other URLs file, which is the global one for the whole application. I need to import include as well. And at the bottom here, I can say path. And when this is empty, I want to include chat.urls. So all empty URLs go in and use the chat.urls file. Great. So then, before we test this, I just want to run python manage.py migrate to initialize the database. And then we can run the server. Great. So then we can use Django's built-in server. Copy this. As you can see here, this is now ASGI/channels instead of the regular, which I don't remember right now, but it's different than the usual. And if I now go to Chrome, paste in this address here, you'll see Chatty, a simple chat application built with Django, channels, and Redis. Here I can fill in the room name, the username, and submit. But nothing happens when we click this, and that's what we're going to fix now. So we can go back to the code and into index.html. So when we go into this page, I want to run this code. So what this does is that when the page is loaded, this file, or this field, sorry, which is the room name input, will get automatically focused. So if I save now, refresh, you'll see that this field here gets automatically focused. And then I want to add a click event listener to this button. So that's this code. So it's just document.query selector. So we find this element and attach the onClick event listener. And when we click it, we get the room name from this field, the username from this field, and then we just redirect the user to the room name / and append username as a parameter in the URL. So if I save now, go back to the browser and refresh, I can set the room name to code with Stein and username Stein. So submit now, I'll be redirected to code with Stein, and then this is a parameter. And we don't have any pages here yet, but that's what we're going to fix next. So I can go back to the to-do list and set this to done. Before I continue, I just want to say thanks to my Patreons. If you too want to support me, you will find a link to my Patreon in the description below. And now it's time to create the room page. So we can just begin by setting up the view. So that's done. So in here, I said def room request, and here I want the room name as a parameter, room name, and username equals request.get username, which will get information from the URL. And if you don't have filled it out, it can just be anonymous. And then just return render request chat/room.html, and here I want to pass in the room name, and also the username, and save. So then I can go to the URLs for this page and append it at the bottom here, path. Here I want to expect a string with the name room name, views.room, and name is also room. And we can save and close that because we don't need to add anything more to that. Next step now is to create a very basic template. You can make a copy of the index page, create a new file, just save it as room.html, and I can remove this JavaScript, and then below this hero I can change this to 6 and 3 so it's the same width. And at the top here I create a div class box. This is where the chat messages will be. Div id chat messages, like that. So then I have an ID I can reference from JavaScript, and I want one field for sending in the message, so I can just remove the label. And input type class, input type text placeholder can be replaced with message, and the ID can be chat message input, and this field can just be removed like that, and the ID can also be replaced with chat message submit. Great. And then below this field I just want to show what username we have. So small class has text gray light, this is a Bulma class, your username, and then we just print username and save. So now if I go back I can refresh and you will see the same. Oops, there's something wrong. This was supposed to be is offset 3, of course. Great, so now we have the message. We can fill in here, have a submit button, and we know that the username is Stein. Perfect. And above the script text, I want to make it possible to access the username and the room name for JavaScript using JSON. So if I scroll down here and above here, I say curly brackets, room name, code, now pipe it into JSON script. This is a tag from Django. And the name should be JSON room name. I can copy this, pass in username, and this should also be JSON username. Simple typo, like that. So if I save now, refresh, if I now just inspect just to see what this looks like, you can see here, oops, very small, script ID, JSON room name, and then the value is code with Stein, and the same with this, username is Stein. So now it's very easy to access this from the JavaScript. So at the top here, I want to access these values and insert them into a variable. So I do that by saying const room name json.parse, and then I just get this value and the text content from this. So now I have these two. Now we made a little bit of progress for the front end, and it's time to do some changes in the backend. To communicate between the front end with sockets and the backend, we need to create a consumer in the chat app. So inside this app folder here, we create a new file called consumers.py. First I want to import JSON. I'm going to use this later in the video. And the class we are extending is async WebSocket consumer from channels. And we can also import from asgi_ref.sync, import sync to async. This makes it possible to communicate with the database while we are still asynchronous. And I will also use this later in the video. I just wanted to import it now. Then we can create a new class chat consumer. And here we want to use async WebSocket consumer. And first I want to create, oops, this was not supposed to be there. It's like this. First I want to create a function for connecting, and all functions inside this needs to be async. So async def connect self, and then I want to get the room name from the URL, and I do that by saying self.roomName equals self.scope, and get the URL route and then the keywords and the root name. And then I want to set the room group name, self.room group name equals chat, underscore %s, and then I format this with self.room name. And then I join a room by saying await, so we wait till this is finished, self.channel_layer.group add self.room group name, and we also need to pass in self.channel name. And when that's done, we wait, set await self.accept and wait till this is finished. And we can also create a function for disconnecting, async def disconnect, pass in self close code, and this will leave a room, leave room. Sorry, there's a little typo I want to fix. Await, so here we wait for this to finish, self.channel_layer.group discard, self.room group name and self.channel name. And then we also need some routing for this. It's the same thing as in the usual urls.py, but I want it to be specific just for the WebSocket routes. So I want to create a new file called routing.py. And here I need to import path again. So from django.urls import path. From import consumers WebSocket underscore URL patterns. So you can see that it's very similar to the other. And then as a path, vs for WebSocket, and then the room name. And I want to use consumer, which is the view. And then we add the chat consumer as AGI. And before we can test this, we need to change the built-in ASGI file a little bit. First I can remove this comment. And then we need to import a few things from channels. First I import auth middleware stack from channels.auth and protocol type router and URL router from channels.routing. And then I want to import the routing file we just created. So import chat.routing, and this is the settings file we want to use. And I can remove this as well, because here I want to use the protocol type router and set HTTP get ASGI application, which is this we get from Django, and we set up the WebSocket like this. So I'm sorry if things is getting a little bit complicated and my explanation isn't too good, but I hope you still are able to follow along. And by the way, I hope you liked this video, and if you do, I would be really happy if you click like below. This helps me grow the channel so I can create even more free content like this. So the next step now is to add some more functionality to the script inside room.html to connect to this WebSocket server. So below here, as a const chat socket equals new WebSocket. This is built into the browser. vs : plus window.location.host. This is the URL to the backend. Plus /vs, like this, which is this ws, plus room name, which you get from here, plus append a slash at the end. And when we connect, we want to say chat socket.onMessage. This is event listener function, pass in the event. And then we can just console log this, console.log on message, just for testing, and chat socket.on close. So we know when if the server goes down. Function, pass in e, console.log, the socket closed unexpectedly, and save. So if I now go back to the browser and refresh, you see nothing happens here. But if I go back here again now, you will see that the WebSocket handshaking. And when that's done, we connect to it. Perfect. So then everything there should be okay. So now we can add some JavaScript for sending and receiving messages. So down here in the onMessage, below this console, I can say const data equals json.parse e.data. So then we get from the server. And then we check if data.message exists. Then we know we got a message from the server. And then we say document query selector and find this element, which is this where we want to show the messages. .inner HTML, then we add the username inside the B element and show data.message. And if there's not a message, then we know that the message was empty, so we can say alert, the message is empty, then there's something wrong. And then at the bottom here, I want to make it possible to click the submit button to send the message. So I just use the document query selector and add event listener. I can close that. And inside here, I want to get the element which holds the message. And to get the message from that, I say const message equals message input dom dot value. So I get the value from this. And then I need to send it back using JSON. And to do that, I say chat socket.send and then I stringify the message, the username, and which room we are on. And then I want to empty the message dot value equals empty. Okay, so then we need to fix a little thing in the backend to receive the message from here and also send it back to the chat application. So if I go back to the consumers.py, below the disconnect we need to create a new message, async def receive self text data, and then we get the data using JSON.loads, and then we just load everything we got. And then we extract the message, the username and the room from the message. And then I want to send the message back to the user group. And to do that, I just say await self.channel layer group send. And then I pass in the group name. It's a type chat message, send the message and who sent it. And to receive this message from the front end, we need one more function. Just add a comment just to know how to separate this. This is a receive message from the WebSocket. So when we get this here, we send it back to the socket as well. And then async def chat message self event. And here I want to get the message from the event message and copy this. And we also get the username, oops, not the R there, like that. And then we just want to send this message up here so it can be broadcasted out to the whole group. Like this, self.send, and then we just pass in the information. So if we save now, and go back to the browser, refresh, test, submit. Okay, so now we got on message and the message appeared there. If I go here now, Uwe, then I say hi, submit, go back here, Uwe said hi, yo, Stein said yo, perfect. The problem now is that if I refresh, the messages are gone. And also if you open in a new window, these messages will not be loaded. And to fix that, we need to store the messages in a database. And to store them, we need a model. And I want this to be in the chat application. Just remove the comment. And then I create a class message, pass in models.model. I want to store the username, the name of the room, the content of the message, and when it was added. And this is filled in automatically. And then I want to order it by date added. So I get the newest one at the bottom. And I can save this and stop the server and update the database by saying python manage.py make migrations and python manage.py migrate. Then I can run the server again. And then I want to go into views.py and import the model we just created from .models import message, because I want to show the messages when we go into a room. Messages equals message.objects.filter room equals room name. And I only want 25, so 0:25. So I only get the 25 newest messages. Then I need to append it to the list of context here. So now it should be available in the front end. So if I go back to room.html, I want to append this by using Django up in this div. And to append it, I say for m in messages, print bold, the username, and then the content. And then I just close the end for. So save. If I refresh here now, I say hi. Great, so now we get the messages there, but we also need to store them when they are sent. And to do that, I need to go into the consumer.py again. And in the top here, I need to import the model we just created from .models import message. So first I want to create one more function at the bottom here. And I want to use a decorator sync to async, which is the one we imported at the beginning. Def save message, self, username, room, and message. And then inside here I can create the message object by saying message.objects.create, pass in username equals username, room equals room and content equals message, and this will be saved. And I need to use this because this is synchronous code while all the other is asynchronous code. And to call this save function, I need to go up and find the group send. So above here I say await self.saveMessage, pass in username, room and message. These three are these parameters, and save. So now messages should be saved in a database. If I refresh here, I say hi from Stein, submit. The message got there, and I can refresh, and the message is still here. Hi from Ove. Submit. So now if I refresh, I can go to another user, another channel room, and I can go back, and the messages got there again. Perfect. But the problem now is that if you write a lot, this page will be very long, so I want to add a max height and an over scroll here. So if I just go back to room.html and find the div class box, sorry, the div ID chat messages, add style, max height 300 pixels, and overflow -y scroll. So when it's over 300 pixels, a scroll bar will appear. And when we load this page, I want to scroll to the bottom of that, and the same when we write and send a message. So here I want to create a function called function scroll to bottom, and let object div equals document dot get element by ID chat messages, which is the one we just added styling to, obj div dot scroll top equals obj div dot scroll height. And when we first load this page, we want to call it scroll to bottom, and also on the bottom of on message. And this will also be called every time we get a message. So if I now refresh, everything is okay. So if I type a few lines here, you see this scroll bar appeared. Perfect. And that we are always at the bottom. And same if I go back here now, you will see that I'm at the bottom on this page as well. Also, if I refresh, I will still be at the bottom. Perfect. And that's it. So now we have a very simple chat application. This is a very simple example of how you can implement real-time chat with Django. I hope you liked this tutorial, and if you want more content like this, please subscribe to my channel. Also remember to click the bell to get notifications. See you next time.